Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Danny.
And I'm 𝐶𝐿,
and this is episode 142. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Hope everybody's fall is in full swing at this point.
Do people in other places in the world or other pockets of the United States celebrate the fall like we do out here in New England?
If Instagram is any indication, it seems like there are many, many people who are just as excited about fall as I am.
Why do I feel like you were ready? You were already wound up for that pitch and you were ready to knock it right out of the park. You knew exactly what to respond.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're recording this in August, and my For You page on Instagram is already like full-blown just Halloween stuff. So either they've got my number, which they definitely do, or, I mean, I see thousands of likes on these things. It's not just me. Other people are excited. It's not just me.
So what does someone do to celebrate the fall in, say, Alaska?
I don't know. I mean, I assume the leaves turn up there also, just probably earlier than they do here.
Your love of fall, Danny, it will never cease to amaze me.
Okay. I don't know what to make of that, but listen, at least I have stuff I like. So there's that.
So for those who do not live in our area, what are the classic fall things to do out here that you may not see in other areas of the country?
I see people in LA wearing sweaters and going apple picking. So I don't think it's just, they're sweating buckets in 75 degrees on bright sunny days. So I don't think it's just us. We just have, it just actually feels like fall here. That's all.
We do have the spooky vibes. I gotta say, some other areas, some other places, they have to sort of orchestrate these things. It's just kind of like baked. I feel like it's kind of a year-round thing too.
Yeah, it is definitely baked into New England culture year-round.
You're always ready for the fall. Always.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, this is the oldest part of the country. We've had the most opportunity for ghosts. So that's why they're here, with people who've just been here longer. The houses are older, more likely to be haunted. This just makes sense. It's just science. So.
It must be so. Yeah. We should start our own haunted house tour out here. There's a lot of creepy places where we live as well. You've shown me at least half of them. I
have done research to see what it takes to get a team to come out to your house and build a haunted house in your backyard so that the neighborhood can enjoy it.
How is I not privy to this information?
It's out of our budget. It's not going to happen. But I did look it up. So, you know, because that would prevent me from buying more Halloween decor. We could just rent the whole haunted house for the backyard.
There's an easy answer to this. Take all the other storage boxes that have other holidays on them, gut them out, and put more Halloween stuff in them, period.
We could be actors in the haunted house. I mean, that would be like, that's my ideal. One day, when I don't have to sit in front of a computer all the time, I will get a part-time gig in the fall to be a haunted house actor.
I feel like that would be absolutely picture perfect. I could not think of something that you were more suited towards.
Yeah, it's the dream one day.
In the meanwhile, though, what are we talking about today, Danny?
Well, today I wanted to talk about something that I've thought about quite a bit over the years, and some people have kind of, I don't want to say they've given us feedback like, oh, you're too soft, because that's not the feedback that we've gotten, but I think that there are certain styles of coaching that could be considered a lot more quote unquote hardcore than we are. And I think some people might perceive that as a sort of like weakness in our coaching philosophies, or that we're just, you know, letting people skirt by with the bare minimum. And I disagree, but I wanted to I just want to kind of chat about it. This isn't like a science-based episode or anything. This is just about like those kinds of coaching philosophies, that hardcore versus what I think is just actually that we take a much more nuanced approach. But I could see how other people might just perceive that as like, oh, they're a bunch of softies and they don't push their people.
Here's my issue with that approach. Maybe taking that no nonsense, no excuse, no frill kind of approach with someone, maybe you get like, I'm just throwing random numbers out, an extra 5% of people to push themselves to do the thing. And they actually do it because you took that approach with them. But for that extra 5% of people that are able to do it because you gave a no BS, like do or die, whatever approach, for that extra 5% that does it, the rest of the people that came to you that weren't going to be able to do it, now, not only were they not going to be able to do it anyway, whether you pushed them like that or whether you took a more nuanced approach, they're going to feel like crap about themselves and they're not going to look for help again, and they're going to have a harder time doing it on their own while they're not looking for help. And that's the issue that I take personally with that kind of approach. You get an extra 5% of people who are otherwise not going to be able to do it, and the other 95% can't do it on their own and feel like crap about the fact that they can't do it on their own and will not reach out for help. And who are we helping here to help that extra 5% with the other 95% suffer? That's my beef. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm all ears.
Well, when I think about that first of all, like what is a hardcore approach? I think a hardcore approach would be like, this is your plan. This is what you eat. These are the lifts you do. This is the time you will do it. This is how much, and you will do it. Like, there are no excuses. You're going to get it done. And if not, you failed the plan. Now, I actually, in many ways, like, I often set my own stuff up kind of like this because I know myself and I know what I can and cannot sort of handle. That doesn't mean I always perform it perfectly, but I'm not like totally against this approach of like, this is the plan, execute the plan. I actually really like that, but life doesn't actually work like that because I don't care if you're a no excuses kind of person or not. Something is gonna come up and you're gonna have to make a judgment call. And I think it's important to learn how to make the right judgment calls. And I feel like with a this is the plan, execute the plan, or else approach, will it get results? Almost certainly it will get results. Will it stick? Almost certainly not, because there's nothing to learn there. I feel like with that approach, you are teaching someone the all or nothing mentality, that black or white thinking that we're so much trying to sort of pull people out of, because while it does get a results when it's working, most of the time it's not working. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And you're just stuck in this seemingly never-ending loop of accomplishing something and then going right back to where you started and wanting to do the same thing again, but to maintain it. You see it time and time again, and it's painful to watch happen. It's painful to hear and to be in these conversations with other clients or people that come to you and they can't figure it out, and they're like, well, this must be something wrong with me. And they blame themselves instead of the fact that the process could have been different.
Yeah. Well, when we look at like research about people who find great success with behavior change, in our case, we're talking about getting your workouts in regularly, eating well, sleeping well, etc. But this could be any habit change. This could be quitting smoking. This could be cleaning your bathroom. It doesn't matter. When they look at the research behind successful behavior change, one of the important components is the person doing it needs to feel in some way like this is their choice. Like they need to feel autonomous in the decisions that they're making. If someone is just forcing you to do it like a drill sergeant, you're not going to feel autonomous about it, and it's not going to stick. It's just not going to stick. Versus when you teach someone or show somebody, okay, we have this option, and this option. Here are the pros and cons of each. Which one do you think is going to be the most successful for you?
Well, it's a hard approach because you just want to give someone the answer and you just want to tell them what to do. And quite frankly, Danny, I do think there are times where you do need to do that.
We'll get there. I have a lot to say about that too.
But if that is your main and only approach, like you said, they're not going to learn, they're not going to feel empowered, and they're less likely to behave like that routinely in the future. So you do need, that's not being soft with somebody. That's not giving them the answer and just being friendly and getting into a conversation with them and just being there to be a supportive person. Like, that's making sure that they're going to learn their process and understand how to get there on their own as well.
Yeah.
Can't do
I feel like
that.
there's kind of there's an array of people. So there's like the drill sergeant coach, which, you know, I want to talk about what a coach is. A coach is not a drill sergeant.
Right.
A coach is going to coach you to do things.
Exactly.
On the opposite side of that, there's kind of like a therapist sort of approach where all you do is validate the person when they're giving you all of their, we'll say, reasons for not doing the things they should have done, where you're just like, I totally get it. I 100% understand why that happened. That's an important thing to do sometimes too, but that is also another extreme that doesn't get anybody anything. A coach is in the middle. You can be like, listen, I understand why you had to miss those workouts. That makes perfect sense. That would have been a tough situation for me too. But here's the thing. If these are your goals and this is what you want to achieve, this can't happen week after week. It can't happen. And that is really important, to be able to give some of that tough love, I guess, but like in a way that is acceptable and still leaves the ball in their court, right? It's not like do this or else. It's like, if this is the goal you want to achieve, what you're doing right now is not going to get you there. What are you going to do next? Like, it still leaves the ball in their court, which makes them feel much more invested in their decisions.
Yeah, as long as you're giving them some information on what they need to do as well. Otherwise...
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that has to happen.
And sometimes people, I'll lay options out for people sometimes because there's, no matter what the goal is, there's more than one way to get there. And one might work really well for somebody and not for somebody else. But sometimes people are just like, okay, what would you do? And I'll tell it, well, if it was me, I would do this one. And here's why. But it's not me, it's you. So, you know, which one do you want to do? Let's do it that way.
Plus, sometimes you could try one option and then immediately pivot, or halfway in pivot to another option. Your options start to change as you get into something. And that's not you being wishy-washy. That's you...
adapting.
Correct. To your mindset, to your environment, to everything, as opposed to just focusing on your goal and doing it in a very rigid, specific way. Because that's a means to an end. Sometimes it works out like that, but I would say more than 50% of the time it doesn't. And when it doesn't, if your answer is to just get back to doing that exact same thing, you're going to fail over and over again. That doesn't feel good either.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't get the results you're looking for.
Yes.
On paper or on a deeper level, like long term.
I saw this video. It went viral. I saw it like a year ago, and then a client sent it to me a few months ago. It was a mama and a baby polar bear. Have you seen this video?
Nope.
Okay, so there's like almost like a complete vertical sheet of snow, I assume on the side of a mountain or something. And the mama polar bear is at the top, and the baby polar bear is trying to climb up, and it climbs like halfway up and it slides back down. And it climbs like 2/3 of the way up and it slides. And this thing is trying, it is failing over and over and over again. And the mama could have gone down and grabbed that baby at any time and brought him up the mountain, but she didn't. And he just kept doing it until he actually got it. And I don't want to say coaching is exactly like that, because I think there's more guidance than just watching someone fail over and over again. But if the coach just steps in and says, do this, this, and this, because I said so, you might get the results, but you're not going to be like actually any better off for it. Because what are you going to do when they're not chirping orders in your ear? Like, what are you going to do? It's very important that you internalize the things that you learn so that you can take them and carry them forward.
Right. The chirping in the ear is good for accountability, and it's part of why you hire the coach. However, like Danny's saying, you have to also learn how to do it without that happening. And that can only... It's hard for that to become your reality after you work with somebody if you're not being coached the right way, essentially.
I've had so many clients say to me like, oh, I was out at this thing, and then I heard your voice in my head, Danny, saying, you know, how do you want to do this? Is this going to help you get to your goal? Like, And that's like one of the biggest compliments that I can get, is that people are hearing some of the suggestions that I've made or questions I've asked in their heads, like weeks after I've said them. I'm like, this is sticking. Because after a while, it's not going to be my voice in their head anymore. That's going to be their voice in their head. And that's what we're going for here.
Hey listeners, we hope you've been enjoying this episode, and we appreciate your love of all things vegan fitness. For those of you who want even more support on your vegan fitness journey, check out our Muscles by Brussels community and become a member. By joining the team, you are one of our exclusive VIPs. As a member, you'll find over 200 macro-friendly, high-protein recipes that can meet any of your meal planning needs. You'll also receive training programs that update monthly. This training has progressive overload built into it, so you can be sure if you're following the program, you are making progress. All of this and more is located inside our Vegan Proteins members only app. As a Muscles by Brussels member, you'll unlock bonus courses, challenges, and more every month. You'll also be invited to our live Zoom video calls, which happen 2 times a month, and are absolute gold to those who show up. And if you can't make the calls, don't worry, you have the opportunity to email us whenever you want. You'll receive a video response to all of your questions from one of the coaches here at Vegan Proteins every time you message us. Members also receive 40% off many of our other services. And of course, our private community of like-minded individuals is like no other. Best of all, you can try this membership out for a full month at no cost to you with this special offer for our listeners only, because we appreciate and want to fully support you. Use the link in our show notes to sign up for your free trial today. We hope to see you on our next live coaching call.
Absolutely. And you can't learn what your voice in your head is going to need to be after you're working with somebody until you work on that with somebody. That's the whole purpose of having a coach. It's like a temporary voice in your head that is your coach's and eventually becomes your own. And you don't hear your coach's voice anymore. You hear your own. You've literally changed your behavior and your thought process for the future. And that's not being soft. That's not only respecting someone's process, that's helping them get into a better process so that they can get results long term, even if it might look like they're not getting what they want or need to be getting short term. But this is where I kind of get a little, I have mixed feelings about this, because you can build a foundation for somebody and build their mindset up. But if you don't put them in a position where they're doing uncomfortable things that shouldn't be their process long term just to get them results, they ain't gonna buy into it. You do need to find a way to get someone results short term, even if you don't believe it should be their process long term.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. Mm-hmm. This is a strategy I use with some people. I mean, some people come to us and they know they understand it. They understand the pacing of things. But some people come with like some pretty high expectations of what is possible in what amount of time. And yeah, oftentimes I might do things a little bit more extreme right out of the gate. And it's mostly so that I can build trust. I want them to learn to trust that I do actually know what I'm doing. I do know what I'm talking about. I can set things up in a way that's going to make X, Y, Z happen. But I can also explain to them why, hey, this is going to work, but this might not actually be ideal. What do you think about that? Like, that's an important conversation to have. And, you know, if and when they do sort of stumble on that more extreme path, which I anticipate that they will, then I'm right there to like proverbially catch them and be like, okay, are we ready to try this like a little bit more in a sustainable way? Okay, let's do that then. But to your point earlier, yeah, there absolutely is a time where you do have to push. And I think this is an important thing to say for anybody who, you know, maybe thinks our approach is a little bit too lax or this or that. We have coached hundreds of bodybuilding competitors that have stepped on stage in stage shape. You don't get to do that without being a hard ass sometimes. So let's talk about when you do need to be a hard ass.
If someone's straight up not adhering to any plan whatsoever and they're disillusioning themselves, thinking they're coming to you and they're getting results, you have to shoot them straight and be like, listen, you need to do certain things to get to your goal right now, and you might not like them, and they might not be practical for your lifestyle or long term, but you need to do them right now. And when you put those tools into action, how you use those tools might change in the future, but right now you got to do it this way. Whether it's biting the bullet and tracking macros for 30 days, whether it is eating the same foods and the same meals for like 3 weeks, like something, for example. Because sometimes people give themselves so much flexibility and they feel good about the fact that they have a coach and they have a process and a plan and that their coach is supporting them autonomously. And they don't realize that not only they're not getting results, that their process it's just not there. And you got to bite the bullet and do things that you don't like and that you probably shouldn't be doing long-term, short-term. Or there's a stigma around the tools that you would normally be using in a different way, long-term, short-term. Does that make sense?
Not even a little bit.
I didn't think so.
Can you explain what you're talking about? Tools.
Let me slow it down. When I say tools, I mean like just things that are tried and true that work, like tracking macros to the gram, for example. Stuff like that, or eating the same foods for several weeks or for a dieting down phase. That's not how you should do dieting phases 10 years in if you've been doing this for a long time, in my opinion.
I think you can. I think you can,
to a degree. Weighing and measuring everything is supposed to... Like there's wiggle room, is what I'm trying to say, of how you track. But if you're giving yourself wiggle room and it's not working, you got to get back to the tried and true things. As an example.
I totally agree. And I think you're right. People, because we talk about flexible dieting and the flexibility of this and the flexibility of that, we do. I mean, I do very much believe in like flexibility needs to be built into a plan. Period. Full stop if it's going to work. But you can be too flexible.
Yes.
You can give yourself too much wiggle room,
yes.
Too much leeway, let too much slide, and then you can't be super confused when it's not working because too much of a good thing is still too much of a good thing. And yeah, that is the coach's job to be like, okay, we gotta get our act together a little bit with this thing here, because even though, let's say intuitive eating, even though eating intuitively was working really well for the first few months, it's not working very well right now. So we're going to need to inventory what you're eating for a week and see where we're actually falling. So stuff like that, I agree with you. And I also think that when somebody has a very extreme goal and they are serious about reaching it, and I mean, this could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a competitor, but competitors absolutely fall into this category. If you want to step on stage and compete, we're a team. We're going to come up with a plan together. But at the end of the day, this plan does have to be executed. And the consequence of not executing it is either you're not going to be able to do the show at all, or you're going to go up on stage and not be very proud of what you brought that day. And that is the most devastating consequence of all, in my opinion. So yeah, there is pushing. When it comes to clients that have goals that require pushing, we will push. I have clients in prep right now. They're not loving life at the moment. They are not thrilled with how things are right now because they're not eating as much as they want to. They're doing a bunch of cardio. They're still weight training. Their sleep is like not great, but if this is what they want to do, and mind you, we never push somebody to compete. Never, never, never. But if they want to compete, this is what it's going to take. And anything short of this is not going to get you there. And that's the truth. The problem that I see in the coaching industry is that I see a lot of problems, but one of the problems is I see so many people coaching Joe Schmo who wants to lose 10 pounds like they're trying to step on stage at a bodybuilding show. And it's like, whoa, we need entirely different tools for this person who's just trying to get healthier, fitter, look a little better, and this person that's trying to look like he doesn't have skin. Like, those are different goals. We don't need to coach everybody like a competitive bodybuilder. And knowing where to push, when to pull back. And there are some people who do kind of need to be coached like a competitive bodybuilder. Examples. Somebody that's trying to get ready for their wedding. If they want to look a very specific way for their wedding day, and that's a goal that's very, very important to them, we're going to push. You know, we're not going to break them because weddings already are stressful enough, but we're going to push. Or a photo shoot or whatever. But if somebody's like, their goal is, well, I just want to be able to like play with my kids and not get winded when I go up the stairs. Do I need them weighing their broccoli? No.
And here's the thing. When you're pushing them for a particular reason, for a particular goal, you can still take a responsible approach and tell them, listen, this is what we're doing right now. This isn't what you do all the time.
Right.
And this isn't necessarily what you do for a different goal in the future that is similar to this, but not quite as extreme. You don't have to just stick to the script to get someone somewhere. Don't be afraid, if you're out there and you're a listener and you're coaching someone, to explain that this approach is temporary and it's because of your particular goal. Otherwise, because people wind up getting hooked on whatever their process is, and then they just keep repeating it, no matter what the scenario is. And if you don't teach your clients that this is because of what you're looking to do, as opposed to this is how to do it every time, they're going to hurt themselves in the future.
Yeah.
Or worse, they're just not going to get what they want.
Yeah, I think that explaining the why of how a program is set up, and, you know, when you're working one-on-one with a coach, you shouldn't just be getting a PDF that explains how your program was put together, because holy crap, your program should have been put together very uniquely for you versus the next person versus the next person. You know, the reason that certain exercises were chosen, or certain days that things were scheduled, or why you have high and low macro days, or why you don't have high and low macro days, or do you have a free meal? Are you going to diet break? How frequently are your deloads? Like, why? And you should always be able to ask your coach why, and they should have an answer for you. If it's something that they programmed, they should have a good reason why. So, yeah, I just, you know, sometimes even I hear some of the stuff that we say, and I'm like, ugh, are we being like too soft? But I think that, you know, right, this is a podcast where we're talking to the widest possible general audience. And I think that our coaching, when we're working one-on-one with clients, depending on who that client is, might sound very, very different to some of the stuff that we say on this podcast. You know, this morning, I was working with a client who's dealing with a good amount of inflammation and tons of cardio because she's training for something. And I recommended, she lives on the beach, I recommended that she go like ice bath herself in the ocean today. That's a pretty wild suggestion, don't you think?
Yeah.
That is not a suggestion I would make on a podcast. Like, hey guys, here's what you got to do. I know that we're well into fall, but if you could just go jump in the ocean for 5 minutes, how insane would I sound?
Yeah, I'm going to need you to do that right now. Whatever you do that. Like jump. Yeah, I get it.
But for this particular person, in this particular context, I was like, oh yeah, you live right on the ocean, and this is the perfect time of year. How about instead of going and doing an ice bath, just go outside. Just go outside and dunk yourself in the ocean for 5 minutes, and let's see if we can get some of this inflammation down this week. Again, one-on-one coaching is very, very specific is what I'm getting at here. And it can be so unique from person to person, and that's why I love it. I'm never bored. Never bored.
Never a dull moment.
And if anybody out there is interested in that one-on-one coaching, go ahead and go to VeganProteins.com and fill out a coaching application right there. Or you can just shoot us an email, coach@VeganProteins.com. We would love to set up a call, see if we're a good fit for myself or Giacomo or Alice or Athena. And yeah, we would look forward to hearing from you. All right, moving on to our question and answer segment here. How important is it to avoid foods with added sugars? Like foods that aren't naturally sweet, like breads and tomato sauce and salad dressings with added sugars. How important is it to avoid them?
Well, I think that if that makes up the bulk of your carby kind of food, you're missing out on a lot of nutrition. That's the bottom line. It may not be the most unhealthy thing for you in the entire world. I'm sure there are levels of unhealthy food that you can eat. But the fact that your food is devoid of nutrients and it doesn't necessarily digest well, and it's not even necessarily going to be satiating if you're getting in a lot of foods with added sugars, and your energy levels are going to be a little off as a result, then you want to pull it back a little bit. But to like completely remove foods that have added sugar because you want to eat nothing but as healthily as possible all the time, I think that's a mistake too, because you're going to wind up having a slice of bread here and there. Maybe that's even going to be a staple for you every day, like you want something snacky every day, etc., etc.
So I think that as long as you're eating within your calorie and macronutrient guidelines, I think it's okay to have foods with added sugars. I don't think it's a huge deal. I do think that sugar and fiber have almost like an inverse relationship. So the way that I like to think about it is I never want my sugar to be more than double my fiber by the end of the day. But to me, when I think about that, I'm not just thinking about added sugars. I'm also thinking about the sugars that are naturally occurring, such as the sugar in fruit. I love fruit. I could eat so much fruit. And I guess when you're eating a whole fruit, you're also eating fiber. But just to give an idea, I think it's good to be aware of foods that have a lot of added sugars to them, because sometimes you're just like, was that even necessary? Like, could I have gotten something without this and it would have tasted just as good? In which case, like, yeah, sure, why not? But if it's something that you love and enjoy, I think it's okay as long as you're having it in moderation. But my general rule of thumb, which I made up and is kind of arbitrary, but it seems to have worked for me thus far, is I never want my sugar to be more than double my fiber.
Fair enough. Danny, what's the difference between leucine and creatine, and which do you think is better?
Oh, interesting question. So they are completely different things, 100% different things. What would you even describe creatine as? So leucine is an amino acid. So it's one of the building blocks of protein, and it is probably the most important amino acid for muscle protein synthesis. So leucine is found in lots of foods that are high in protein, even vegan foods, but you can also supplement with it as well. It's going to be found in high amounts in like any vegan protein powder. So I don't necessarily think you have to supplement with leucine. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Creatine is a different kind of sports supplement entirely, where it helps you with your intracellular energy. So we have creatine stores inside of all of our muscle cells, and they're generally not very full, our creatine stores. And since there are no vegan forms of creatine in food, you would have to supplement with it in order to fill those creatine stores. And what having full creatine stores does is it allows you to push a little bit harder in the first 30 seconds of work. So most sets are around 30 seconds. So it will allow you to either lift a little bit more weight or get a couple of extra reps. And all of this compounded over time will equal having better muscle gains. Creatine is also like the most studied sports supplement in the history of ever, and it's very, very safe. You only need about a teaspoon of it every single day. Creatine monohydrate is vegan. To me, if I had to pick between those two supplements, creatine all the way, because I feel like I get lots of leucine from food. But you could also take a BCAA or an EAA if you were worried about your leucine intake.
It's worth noting that you're not going to get an adequate amount of dietary creatine no matter what you're eating.
Yeah.
At all.
Yes, that is worth noting, that even, I mean, if vegans are not the ones that have kept creatine on the shelves for the last 50 years. That's meat eaters. So even people who do consume meat, eggs, dairy, fish, they are eating creatine, but still not as much as you would get taking a supplement.
You'd have to have a stupid amount of animal meat to get your creatine stores saturated, to the point where you'd have a lot of other problems before your creatine stores are saturated.
Yeah, totally. That's a very good point. So yeah, I think they're both great, but they're very, very different things.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Stay in touch with us at Vegan Proteins, at Muscles by Brussels on the socials. Hit the contact button on veganproteins.com and you will get a human response from one of us. Once again, my name is 𝐬𝐝𝐫𝐞𝐭.
And I'm Danny.
We'll talk to you soon.